The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in a bit of trouble, sort of, but at the same time, not really. I don't call this fake drama, but it's certainly trumped up to be more than I think maybe it should be. He was at an Edmonton, Alberta town hall event last week, and a woman made a comment where she used the term mankind.
Yes.
And Trudeau interrupted her and said, you should say people kind instead. And it's so funny because he's getting it from both sides. There's people who say that's oppressive language policing and she should be allowed to say mankind. There's people on the other side who are saying the fact that a man interrupted a woman to tell her what word to use is a form of mansplaining. So he's just getting crushed from both sides on this one.
Oh, and people who think that peoplekind just isn't a word. I mean, I think he meant to say humankind. That would be the gender neutral term.
Humankind.
But there's really nothing wrong, I think, with mankind because it's just a shortening of humankind. I mean, man is in the word woman. Right?
Yes, it is. That's true. I don't have a problem with this. And there's all these different movements. Like there's one now within the Spanish-speaking world of we don't say Latino or Latina anymore.
Yes.
It's Latin with an X, which could mean anything. And I'm not using that. I'm just not. I'm not using it. And I don't. It's not about. I'm a proud equality feminist. Everybody knows that. But one of the sort of hallmarks of the Spanish language and of many other languages is that you have this gender distinction. And by gender, I don't mean human gender. I mean that words have gender.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I'm just at this point, I'm pushing back against that and I'm not adopting that. And I do also think it's okay to say mankind or humankind. I don't think peoplekind makes any sense. But say humankind, say mankind, I'm okay with either.
It is interesting to think about how this is approached in other languages, because in Spanish and German and countless other languages, you do assign gender to inanimate objects, to nouns, right?
Do you in German? I just don't know enough.
I think there are three genders in German. Yeah. But so like in Spanish, for example, if you have a group of men, you use a word that ends in OS.
Yes.
A group of women, a word that ends in AS.
And for a mixed group.
But if it's a mixed group, or even in just a group that has 5 women and 1 man, you still use the male version of that. So I wonder if these social justice warrior types are getting upset about that.
Well, some of them are.
They want to change it?
Some of them are upset about it. And I really think, this is one of those issues where in a perfect world, would we have been better off if languages developed without gendering words to begin with? Maybe. It's not the world we're in, and I don't think that this is the #1 battle to be fighting right now. Now, there are people who can disagree with me and say, David, here's what you're missing. Our world exists through language. If the language is gendered and favors men, then that is a barrier no matter what you do in the culture, you will never fix because the language still contains that. You could have that position. I happen to disagree. I just think that there are more important issues to work on now with regard to gender equality than changing Latino and Latina to Latinx, right? I just don't think that that's the right. We have limited resources, and that's not where I'd be putting my resources.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm for using the gender neutral term if it's easily available, if people know what you're talking about. Like, I'm okay with saying spokesperson instead of spokesman, or
obvious
congressperson
what people
instead
mean.
of congressman.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we didn't use those terms so much in decades past,
That's
and
correct.
they are coming along. And you have to give people time, I think.
Yeah.
It's also comes across a little bit rude to correct someone
while they're speaking, in that way.
Because it's such a minor point, I feel.
It seems nitpicky.
Yeah.
It seems nitpicky in some way. And listen, I don't even want to make a bigger deal out of the story than it is. But I think that you're completely right, that we've seen this evolution towards using words like chairperson instead of chairman or chairwoman, spokesperson instead of spokesman or spokeswoman. I still think it's okay also when you're talking about a specific individual.
Yes.
If it's a man or a woman, then it's perfectly fine to say the spokesman or the spokeswoman, right? We're not moving away from that, are we?
I hope not.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you are assuming their gender, which you may not know necessarily which one they belong to, or which of many they belong to. So some people could take issue with that.
Yeah, but I think that, again, it would be quite nitpicky.
It is.
In some way. Uber has something called demand-based or dynamic pricing. If a lot of people are requesting Ubers in a particular area, you will have to pay a multiplier. You will have to pay more because there is higher demand. And Bob Rickard, the name of the restaurant is Bob Rickard. There's two Bobs in it. It's a high-end restaurant in London. Every table has a button you can press to call for champagne. You can now pay 25% less for their a la carte menu during off-peak times and 15% less during mid-peak times. So depending on demand, the menu will have different pricing. Now, I have a couple different thoughts on this. Number one, great idea, right? I mean, a lot of restaurants are not busy during certain times, and you're still able to profit even by pricing your menu lower. So why not do that? I take issue that this is that innovative because many restaurants have a lunch and dinner menu, right?
Okay.
So why is it that different to say we also have an earlier evening menu or whatever? And in fact, a lot of restaurants do. They've got happy hour menu, which is like between 5 and 7 or whatever. I just don't think it's that innovative.
They sell different meals, though. I think the catch here is that you get the same thing.
At some places, it's a lot of the same items. You've got items pulled from the regular menu to the bar menu. I get what you're saying. It is not exactly what is available, but I think that it's a big publicity thing when it's not super innovative.
I think it works better here because it's a high-end restaurant where you're paying over $50 per meal.
Sure.
So they think that during off-peak hours, we could still make a hefty profit. Because,
that's right.
Yes, of course, we're a high-end restaurant. We still have to pay our waitstaff well. We have to pay for the caviar and the champagne. But there is a good profit margin there.
Yes, there is.
And we'll cut down on some of that by lowering our prices, but we'll still make a good profit, too.
Generally speaking, I agree with you. Just as a point of trivia, a lot of the super high-end restaurants actually don't make that much profit margin because they have so much staff. Instead of having 3 people in the kitchen, they might have 12 or even 24 people in the kitchen. And that really adds up. And in fact, there's some of those super high-end restaurants with like the 30-course meals that run at a loss, but they serve to promote the chef, who then gets book deals and speaking engagements and whatever else. But that's not what we're talking. This isn't so expensive that we're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know. Like if this reached out to some of the restaurants that I go to for like a quick bite to eat, I think it would just piss me off because I would make it a point to go there during off-peak hours.
Yeah.
But if I didn't realize that they were using dynamic pricing and I went later on in the day compared to what time I would normally go to,
and it was more expensive,
I would just throw a fit and leave, I think.
Do you plan to go to Bob Rickard during a potential upcoming trip to Europe?
If I were to go to London, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd rather spend the money doing like cool museum trips or going to Westminster Abbey.
Yeah.
Or
a lot of the museums are free, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. Even like the Tower of London.
Sure.
I'll do the London Eye before I did this, and I don't really want to do the London Eye.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do the London Eye when I went to London. Okay, so dynamic pricing, very, very interesting. Imagine if we adopted this for membership, where like if you signed up in the middle of the night, it would be cheaper or something like that. I don't know. Of course, it'd be daytime in Australia, but
I think we have enough promotions going on. Like we just had the deep glass membership.
Yeah, Pat is steering me away from that.
The discount codes.
I don't even know how we would code it into our website. It would require some expenditure with our web developer. Okay, there are going to be 6 parking meter-like devices in downtown Los Angeles, which will allow you to contribute not to parking your car, but to the Skid Row-based C3 program, which is a cooperation between the city of Los Angeles, the county, and different local service providers that do outreach for homeless residents and helps them find housing. You can do cash donations with these meters. You can also do sponsorship. You can sponsor the meter itself for $3,500 a year. And it's a very interesting idea. I like this idea because it is it's less invasive than having a person doing the stopping on the street and saying, "Do you have a minute today for homeless whatever?" And a lot of people react negatively to that because they don't like being approached on the street in that way. So I like this idea. I think it's very cool.
I do too, and I think it's in part because it's using infrastructure that we're already used to.
Sure. A device that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and if you pay a parking meter, it tends not to be that much. Like maybe it's $1, $1.25 per hour.
Sure, it depends where you live. But.
So people usually, as long as they're not going to be parking there for too long, they usually don't mind paying the meter, I think.
Sure.
I mean, you get annoyed when you get a ticket or it expires or whatever.
Yeah, people generally are friendly. It's a process that is part of our parking existence
Yeah,
or something like that.
certainly here in the city. So I think if you apply that to, helping the homeless, it's a good transition for people. I mean, it's very simple for them to make.
When you're walking around and there's someone with a clipboard and says, do you have a moment for women's rights? Do you have a moment for whatever? Do you stop and talk to them? Do you ever make a donation, or do you say, I'm sorry, I don't have time today?
I say I don't speak English.
You say in English.
No, in French.
You say in French that you don't speak English.
Or Spanish, depending on
That's aggressive.
circumstance. I know, yeah, it's bad. I do that.
I just say, and they phrase it in a way to make you feel bad, because they say, do you have a minute for women's rights? And I say, no, I don't. And it makes it sound like I just don't have time for women's rights, which is, of course, not what I mean, but it's deliberate. I never stop. I never do.
Yeah.
And I never donate to that stuff. And I don't know who you are. And even if you say you're with this organization or that organization, I just don't even have the interest in exploring whether that's true, because there's other ways that I can more comfortably make contributions that are important to me. I sympathize with them. That is a tough job. That is a tough job, which I would not want to do. But I never contribute anything to those.
Yeah, I've gotten so sick to getting roped into those things. And maybe that makes me a bad person.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, not today,"
Yeah.
which is a lie in the sense that it's not like tomorrow I'm going to come back.
Right.
So if I'm going to make a lie, might as well just say I don't speak English.
Yeah, sometimes I do say I don't have time today. But of course, today is the day. There's no better day than today. All right. Although I will admit, when I've been in other countries and people come up to me and they want to start up something like that,
Yeah.
and it's not for an organization, but it's just sort of panhandling with a story, there I will say I don't speak the local language, no
Right.
matter what it is.
So why not do that here?
I don't know. Because they can often hear me speaking in English to the person I'm walking
True.
with or something
Yeah.
like that. Okay, well, I'm going to ask my brother about this. He lives in LA and he works, I think he works downtown. If he is excited by this.
Have you announced what trip you're doing for April?
Well, I'm going to be at a conference in Vegas, the normal conference I go to, and then I'm going to drive over to Los Angeles to visit my brother.
So maybe you'll see one of these meters.
That's true. That's true.
Would you contribute?
I would not.
You would not contribute?
No. I don't just, I mean, listen, I don't know the organization. I don't know what percentage of the money goes to administration and salaries versus actual serving the people.
True.
So once I find out what charities are administered, what I consider ethically and morally and efficiently, I'm comfortable with those.
Okay.
And I have a limited amount of money that I donate anyway, so I don't feel the need to start subdividing my donations into more and more organizations and doing more research and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's it for the bonus show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.